So first of all, how, as an Albanian man, how does one get involved with the Italian Mafia and not the Albanian Mafia in New York? You know what I mean? Why did you go that route?
The biggest Albanian gangster around when I was growing up was Joey Lika. He's got life. And his nephew was my friend Sadat, who just recently died. And he had a little brother, Mussolini. We grew up together since we were 5 years old. But Albania was a communist country, so it was closed off. If you would have told people when I was growing up, you're Albanian, they wouldn't even know what that was. So you would kind of say the same thing. Well, it's near Greece, it's near Turkey, it's like Italian. And people would always say the same, well, it's like Italy, right? It's like Italian. And I used to say, no, it's like Albanian. It's a separate country. But we are very close to them. And you have a lot of Albanians that live in Bari, Italy, and Calabria. It's full of Albanians. And, you have, the cultures are the same, really. The Mediterranean cultures are basically the food, the thought process, and things like that. So so there really wasn't an Albanian mafia like that. Okay. But there were, packs of serious drug dealers like Lika, and his nephew was my good friend. There was another family lived up the block from me, the Kamashes. They're legitimate guys, actually good football players, soccer. I say football still, but American football and football. And they were good football players, American soccer, excuse me again. But there was them, and there was a couple other families, but for the most part, there really weren't. Okay. Albanians like the whereas now when the country opened, now there's Albanians everywhere and everybody knows. We have a strong reputation of being stubborn people, but good-hearted people, but wild people too.
And some tough.
Yeah. We have a reputation of being violent.
And you said you grew up on Jamaica Avenue, correct?
Correct.
And there was all different cultures, ethnicities where you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up in the border of East New York and Woodhaven. It was Jamaica Avenue. My school was actually Frank K. Lane High School, was half in Queens and half in Brooklyn. So we grew up on that border, and it was a lot of Spanish there. Not that many Indian at that time. On the other side of the neighborhood, it was German. That was towards Myrtle Avenue, and Irish. And then on the other side was Ozone Park and Howe Beach. Ozone Park was kind of middle, and Howe Beach were the rich kids. So where the money was. So we didn't, at that time, when we were younger, we didn't go down there much because we didn't have money. We were all in, for the people that remember especially, we'd have sneakers and we would put the black tape, electric tape around our shoes when it ripped because we didn't have money, so they would make fun of us. We'd have holes in our jeans, we'd have patches on them. Our parents would iron patch, our pants. None of us had money. My father was a cab driver, so we grew up rough with nothing.
So how did you get mixed up with the Italian Mafia? You've been on record saying before you have more respect for our legitimate tough street guy no matter where he's from. A street guy is a street guy. It doesn't matter his ethnicity, where he's from. Obviously, you're around a lot of different guys in that life or in any form of, the gangs or the mafia. Why did you go the route of the Italian Mafia when you're around all different ethnicities growing up?
I grew up on Jamaica Avenue where it was a mixture of Irish, German, Spanish, Italian, some Albanian, very few. And I always say the same thing because where I went to school, busing first started. And when I went to high school, it was mostly a black school. It was white and black and Spanish, but it was mostly black. And most of my friends on my baseball, I played baseball, were black. And it was... The other part was Spanish. Was one or two white kids. Keith Burtis was one of the white guys. Me, Steve Dennis. I got a good memory. Everybody knows it by names. So me and Steve Dennis still friends. But the guys that would protect me, I was a little kid, were actually all my black friends. They would tell everybody, that's Little John. Don't go near him. Guys that didn't know me from the street that were hanging out on the street corner. So I always had a lot of respect for my friends because they didn't have that, the guys I grew up with, the black guys I grew up, never had that colored thing. Because to them, I was one of them, right? So I always kept that mentality because my parents had that mentality. They had mixed friends. I had mixed friends. My sons have mixed friends. We never looked at it. When people tell me about the Italian mob, my dad grew up on the Lower East Side. And Lucky Luciano's cousin was Blackie also. Charlie Luciano was my father's partner growing up, my uncle's partner. And, so I was already involved with the mob socially. Since I'm a baby, since I'm 3-4 years old, I was with these guys. My uncle ran a 3-card Monte game down in the South Bronx with these guys. Another guy, Handsome Jack, a guy that just came home just recently, Al Greco, would stay there, stay with them. My father looked up to him. He was known to be a tough guy. He just came home after, I don't know how many years for murder and everything, and 80 years old, guy's supposed to be in great shape still. These are the people I was introduced to since I'm a kid. And then my baseball coach was the neighborhood boss, and my little girlfriend growing up, her dad and uncle were mob guys in the Lucchese family. So that was my introduction. Since I'm a baby, I was around these guys.
Okay. So it was always just a part of who you were destined to become.
Yeah, they just, listen, was my neighborhood, my area, and the only difference in my mentality was I didn't care. You know, I stayed with a lot of Irish guys, and they were tough guys. I stayed with a lot of black guys, tough guys. One of my best friends now is John Wilson. We were just together the other day. We haven't seen each other in a while. Black guy, Denny Brown, black guy, Prince Badi, black guy. I don't give a what color they are. And, you know, my son, same thing. Their friends are all mixed. So I look at it and I'm like, this guy's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. If he's a tough guy, he's a tough guy. All that about, you know, well, he's only this. If he's that nationality, is stupid. And I'm an Albanian guy. I'm very patriotic to America, to Albania. And, you know, those are the core values, I guess, I learned from my neighborhood friends and from my family.
Go ahead.
All right, which brings me to my next question, but you just got to give me 1 second, okay?
Yeah.
It's nothing bad.
Where are we going?
I think he's going to get my baseball bat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Some literature.
Little literature. So anyone who doesn't know, The Darkest Hour, pick it up.
A close up on that.
There you go. We'll get it on that bad boy. We'll even put it over here. So growing up in the book, you know, I don't want to touch on the book a lot because obviously I want you guys to read it.
Right.
So you had a bunch of Irish dudes around you, you know, and there was at the
7 and 9.
7 and 9. And then you and your brother had some beef with those guys and your brother tuned them up. So, I mean, obviously coming around a bunch of different neighborhoods, coming up with boxing and things of that nature, this was just ingrained as you as a child. And obviously just knowing so many different groups of people, you know, from Irish to black to whatever, that probably made you able to spread your wings bigger and have so much more of a touch than just maybe the Italian Mafia at one point, right?
Yeah, you know, 7 and 9 was a rough gang of kids that were from our neighborhood. A lot of them were my friends. A lot of them weren't. But in those days, it was very racial, right? You had the Crazy Homicides was one gang, and the little girlfriend I was talking about earlier, her sister went out with Ringo, who was the boss of the Crazy Homicide Spanish guy. So I knew all them because he was out with the sister. I was younger with the other sister. And then you had the Black Panthers in those days. They'd be down in Brooklyn and Highland Park. It was a park that a lot of guys, if you're white, you didn't go down that way. I did because I knew them all. You know, so it was a little different. Same thing, 7 and 9. There was a lot of them were good kids. A lot of them were wild kids. A lot of them were pieces of shit. But I knew them all. And, you know, we had problems with some of them. And they did things that, you know, people ask us, why didn't we join the gang? Because some of them did things back in those days. You're talking about the 60s and the 70s, where they would baseball bat and pipe black guys just from coming through our neighborhood. You know, they'd kill the Spanish kid. One of our friends later on, he changes his life, and he gets his life right. He actually helps me get my life right. And he killed the Spanish kid just because he was Spanish going through our neighborhood. And I wasn't with that, you know, because I didn't think like that, because these guys are my friends. They protected me, these guys, black guys. I played baseball down in the Prospect Park. It's all black. It's all Spanish. I'd walk through that neighborhood, and if anybody bothered me, those same guys would protect me. So how can I go with these guys after some of these guys or their families? I couldn't do it. And so I never thought like that. Even in prison, guys know I used to eat on the other side. White guys wouldn't go on the other side of the chow hall. I did. I would go eat with Darrell Johnson, his name's Butch, from Philly, and different guys. And the white guys would make a comment, I tell them to go themselves. So I didn't care what they thought. And, you know, people always, you know, got people always talk, but anybody knows me from these prisons know I fought everywhere. I fought in every prison I was at. I was always in the hole, whether it was Fairton, it was Allenwood, it was Fort Dix, it was penitentiaries in Brazil. Guys know me. I've been in every jail around. So I've been in, I don't know, Rikers, Queens House, Loretto. I mean, I can just keep naming them. You know, Allenwood. So, you know, it's just part of the life.